Welcome back to the channel. Now you might remember from our last video where we transformed the garage floor with these diamond tiles. Well, that was all in preparation for this. Yes, the hoist is finally installed. Now, as you know, this has been months and months of planning. I can't wait to show you how it all came together. So stick around, because before we dive into the installation, I'll quickly explain why we went with this particular hoist and what makes it the perfect home garage solution in the setup for what we needed. So this is the HAPP90. It's a 2-post, mid-rise, clear floor and clear overhead 3-ton hoist from the guys at HAPP. Now, why did I go with this solution over, of course, the other options of scissor lifts, quick jacks, or even a 4-post parking solution? The 4 posts were not an option because of the height restrictions that we've got in the roof. We're about 150 mil too short in order to have a 4-poster, so they were out. The quick jacks that I looked at alongside the scissor lifts were basically in the same barrel for me. They don't give me enough height, but then also there's far too much restriction if you're wanting to be doing things such as gearbox pulls, engine removals, etc. There's just not enough access as to what you get from a clear 2-poster. So why HAPP out of all of the 2-post options? 2 main reasons for me. So firstly, within this setup, the columns are actually adjustable, which means that you can completely control the distance between the 2 columns, which is a game changer if you're actually working on multiple different cars or you don't in fact have a normal size car. Now, the second and biggest contributing factor for me was the height of the columns. Now, we've already talked about the height restriction in the garage, but with these 2-meter high individual columns, there is no further extension of the cylinders beyond the top of the columns themselves. So the column height at 2 meters is actually the maximum height ever taken with the lift itself. So because there's no floor plate, there's no overhead, it's completely controlled hydraulically with 5-meter hoses. Now, they run from the pump to each of the individual columns themselves. Now, the beauty of this system is that they can actually be disconnected when not in use, as we just had via just a quick lock system. Now, the beauty of the 5-meter hoses is that it does give you excellent flexibility in terms of pump placement. So you can place the pump unit away in a corner, outside in the main area where you want to work, or completely away when it's actually not in use as well. The hydraulic pump unit itself is industrial grade kit. So it's 240 volt, but it's got a 15 amp supply. The aluminium house motor itself is great, and it's got built-in safety features like a 4 amp fuse link. Now, that's for the limit switches. But what's even better is that HAPP actually use the same pump across their entire range. So if you need parts or service, everything is standardized and readily available as well. What these are is HAPP's latest generation 2 arms and carriage designs. What they allow you to do is achieve the best possible arm configuration. So they're a 3-piece arm with an incredible range of movement from 580 mil right out to 1140 mil. Now, these can go shorter than most arms on the market, and they're also longer than their previous arms that they used to have. So combined with the ability to actually shift and position the columns anywhere that you want, you can actually set up this hoist exactly where it needs to be for the specific space and need that you actually have. Now, the kit comes with rubber lifting pads. Now, these are fully adjustable and they rotate to match your vehicle's lifting points. But here's a really nice touch. HAPP have also included a 2-inch and a 4-inch height extension spacer. Now, the standard setup gives you 1.5 meters of lift, but with these extra spacers, you can get even more height for larger vehicles or when you need that extra clearance. Safety features include these automatic mechanical locks, emergency stop, and the limit switch, which prevents overlifting. Now, the clear floor design means that there's no cables to trip over, and it's rated for 3 tons, which covers pretty much anything that we'll work on in this garage, and honestly as close as a commercial setup as you can get in a residential space as well. Now let's go ahead and look at the installation process. I made the decision to use a professional installer for this job. An installer was recommended by the guys at HAPP themselves, and I have to say the communication was fantastic. He came into the site visit prior to installation to talk through expectations and ensure that everything was ready to go. Now, he went and picked up the hoist from my local depot once it had been shipped down from Queensland and arrived with a crane on the truck. Now, that made unloading these heavy components, we're talking about 500 kilos for the hoist in total, so much easier and, of course, far safer than having to manhandle them into position ourselves manually. Now, everything comes packaged basically inside the two columns. So once we got everything laid down and in a rough position, we need to unpack the arms, the lines, and basically all of the other componentry aside from the actual pump itself. Now, before any drilling started, the most important part is, of course, the measurement. Now, this wasn't just about fitting the hoist into a space. We know that they're adjustable columns, so we had some great width to play with. But we needed to ensure that it was going to accommodate all of the vehicles that I planned to use, both width and lengthwise. We also needed to make sure that we could still park another vehicle on the other side of the garage when not working on it. But equally important was ensuring that there's adequate room on the wall side to work on the car that's on the hoist, that's wheels on and off, it's brake work, that sort of thing. We worked out that we drive all cars forward onto the hoist except for the Porsche because it's back heavy with the engine in the rear. So it needs to go on backwards for the proper weight distribution on the lifting points. Now, because I'd already done the pre-drilling to test the concrete depths, as you might have seen in my previous video, we knew that the floor could actually handle the load as well. So it was measure, run the different scenarios, step them out, measure the cars again, and then check one final time just to ensure that we had everything perfectly aligned. And next came the drilling. There are multiple 20mm holes for the true bolts. Now, HAPP specifically recommends quad tip masonry drill bits. This is to ensure that you have clean, precise holes. Now, as you're drilling, cleaning every hole thoroughly is super crucial. Any of the debris left behind is actually going to compromise the bolt's holding strength. The installation sequence is also critical. You do the first anchor, then the one diagonally opposite, then the remaining anchors, and you never try to do them all at once or you can risk some misalignment. Now, the column themselves, as you've seen, they're not as heavy as you'd probably expect, but getting them positioned perfectly level and parallel is where you need to take the most amount of time. Now, still shims are essential if you're going to be leveling on uneven floors, and you can use up to 2¼ inches of shimming if necessary. Now, this process is checked and double checked and completed a number of times, both once the columns are upright and, of course, in place, once the bolts are in, and then again once the arms are actually in place as well. It's all in the attempt to ensure that they are as level and ultimately as even as possible. The next step was about installing the lifting arms onto the carriage itself. Now, this was a step that was fine-tuned later once we had a car in place in order to be able to adjust for any changes under the load. Because the arm locks are a key safety feature, they automatically locate into position once the carriage is lifted and remain operational when lowered. It means that it allows you to safely position the arms under the vehicle in the right spots. Each arm has 3 Allen head bolts for adjusting the locks. Now, what the installer was checking, and most importantly, was that the jaw engagement is smooth and easy and adjusting as necessary. The arm locator pins are positioning aids only. They exceed Australian standards, but they aren't load-bearing components at all. With the columns positioned and now secured, it was time to look at the pump unit itself. Now, with the beauty of the 5-meter hoses, it means that you can actually position the pump almost anywhere that you'd like, particularly away from the main area of work. The hose fittings can be swapped to either side of the pump as well, just dependent upon your specific layout, which again gives you greater flexibility. I opted to actually mount the pump onto the provided trolley to give me even greater flexibility from that point, just in terms of movement around the garage itself. The one thing just to keep in mind is that the pump needs adequate ventilation, obviously for cooling, and just make sure that you position it where you can easily check the oil levels and perform any necessary maintenance as well. Another important safety feature here is installing the foot protectors. These are provided to minimize the chance of getting your foot caught under the arm. They're also really useful for positioning and removing the arms under the vehicle as well. It's a simple installation, just using the bolts provided. You just screw them into the holes in the arm. Next up is to fill the pump with the hydraulic oil. The pump holds about 10 litres. And whilst the kit doesn't come with any oil, I'd pre-arranged with the installer to actually bring some. Next is to connect the hydraulic lines between the columns and back to the pump. It's a critical step because you're bleeding all of the air from the hydraulic lines to make sure that any of the trapped air is gone, because otherwise it's going to cause uneven lifting and a jerky operation. So the installer carefully bled each line by disconnecting the quick connector, which is at the base of each of the columns. That releases the fluid and then making sure all the air bubbles are then expelled. It's a cleaner approach and it prevents mess while also allowing proper calibration to ensure that the carriages are even lifting. So after bleeding, he then tested the system unloaded to ensure that both carriages did in fact lift evenly. And then finally, he applied lubricant to the inside corners of the carriages, front and back, and then to the lifting pads as well. So now with the hydraulic system all balanced and the components are properly lubricated, the hoist was ready for its first test with a load of a car. Now, with the car positioned perfectly midway between the columns, we started to carefully adjust each of the arms and position them in the recommended lifting spots. Now, this took some time getting the disc adapters perfectly aligned, but it's essential for the safe operation. We then began the first lift, starting slowly to raise enough for the pads to contact the lifting points, and then you stop to recheck the alignment and ensure the arm restraints have engaged. You then begin to lift slowly in small increments, and then you're frequently stopping. We checked for stability in the balance. If you listen, you can hear the distinctive clunk of the mechanical safety latches engaging every 100 millimeters. This tells us that the safety system was working evenly and correctly. We then continued in an incremental process of lift a little, pause, assess, repeat until we reached the working height.
And we've still got how much room to the top? Another foot at least. That's pretty good.
Then after manually disabling the safety latches on each side, it was time to test the carriage coming down, just to ensure that both sides were actually coming down evenly. Now that it's installed, let me show you exactly what this thing can do. Height adjustment, as you just saw, is smooth and precise. The hydraulic control gives you perfect control over lifting speed. It takes about 45 seconds to get to full height, and of course much faster on the way down with the added weight. So there you have it. The HAPP90 installation is complete, and I have to say, even just from these initial tests, this feels like it's going to be an absolute game changer for the home workshop. Combined with the new flooring that we've just put in, the garage has gone from what was obviously a gym, basic car storage, to now a proper workshop facility. Now, obviously, I've only just got this installed, so I can't give you the full long-term review yet. What I'm looking forward to testing over the coming months is how it handles the regular use and what I actually use and get out of it as well. So it's oil changes without having to crawl around on the floor. It's brake work at a comfortable height. And of course, suspension inspections where you can actually see what you're doing. Now with the Land Rover, there's a huge amount of work coming up. It's a gearbox out, clutch replacement. There's going to be a proper test. That is going to be a proper test of the access and the stability. Brake overhauls, suspension work, exhaust system repairs, and that's before we even start on the 911 as well. With this hoist, the clear floor design should make positioning drains and toolboxes so much easier. We're going to have proper lighting access under every part of the car, and that's going to be a huge aid when it comes to any kind of diagnostic work as well. For anyone considering a similar setup, I would absolutely recommend using a professional installer like I did. Yes, it does add to the cost, but it cuts the installation time down to half a day for the full setup. And to be honest, when you're dealing with equipment that's going to be lifting cars above your head, that added safety and peace of mind is worth every penny. I'm planning on doing a proper follow-up review in about 6 months. Gives me a chance to put it really through its paces, and again, how much use am I actually going to have with the system as well. It'll test the longevity of the hydraulic system, and I'll be able to give you a real-world perspective as to does owning a hoist in your own garage actually live up to the hype. If you're thinking about a similar upgrade, the HAPP range definitely seems like a solid kit. The build quality is excellent, the instructions were reasonably clear, but the support has been really great so far. Let me know in the comments below what your dream garage upgrade would be, and whether you'd like to see that follow-up review once I've had some proper time, and what questions do you have within that as well. Don't forget to like this video if this has helped you out, subscribe for more workshop content. I'll see you in the next one, and until then, let's continue getting our hands dirty.